three organizational challenges or three overarching areas of change. For an organization that is moving to something that is more agile and has chosen specifically the Scrum framework as their preferred approach, will encounter struggles, challenges, shifts that need to be addressed. Some of them take a long time to resolve. But if you think about those that you have experienced, the organizational challenges as you're trying to become more agile using Scrum, I would expect that most, if not all, of the challenges that you've experienced would fit into one of three big areas of change. One big area of change is getting iterative development right. Another big area of change is getting self-managed teams right. And another area of change is getting to the right level of visibility or transparency. Starting with iterative. You're trying to get iterative right, but what does iterative really mean? Well, iterative simply means a cyclical approach to getting work done. And if you're moving towards something that's more iterative, you may very well be moving from that's something more sequential, structured. Maybe we call that a waterfall approach, traditional project management with Gantt charts. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with a waterfall approach. It's some of the things we do with it that can be problematic. But if we are using a waterfall approach, there's some things that we want to keep in mind about that approach. One thing is that it's reasonable to have segregated skills. It's reasonable to have consecutive activities, another thing. You have one area that does their work, then they hand off to the next area. You might even have a vendor taking care of one part of your delivery. And this is where you see things like, are you ready yet? I'm waiting so I can begin my piece. And you would also expect in that more traditional environment that it normally takes longer to receive your return on investment because you have to go through these sequential steps. And that return on investment is often referred to as deployment when you can finally complete the work and start using it. But now we're talking about moving to something that's more agile. And in an agile environment, instead of having segregated teams, you're looking for integrated teams, cross-functional teams, where teams are composed of the different skills necessary to get the job done, and they are working concurrently. So it's possible we could see some testing going on while there's programming, and the team is still trying to answer some design and requirements questions, maybe all at the same time. Now, that alone is not hard to establish. What I just described is fairly easy to do. You give me a 2 or 3 day period, permission to come into your organization, work with your areas, I can get them to something iterative that quickly. What makes iterative hard in Scrum, where it becomes challenging in Scrum, is this expectation that you do not have to wait long stretches of time before you receive your return on investment. We're expecting return on investment or value to be delivered while those iterations are playing out. So instead of having to wait months and months to receive something valuable, we're expecting something valuable maybe every couple of weeks. In other words, what we're saying is it's not just iterative, it's incremental. And that could be challenging. Another area of change that the organization has to deal with has to do with self-managing teams. In a traditional organization, you'll have different departments with different functional managers over those departments. Nothing inherently wrong with that structure. But now we're talking about moving to cross-functional teams, which means we're going to be taking people from those different departments and putting them together on another team. That in itself is nothing new. Been around a long time. It's what the PMI, the Project Management Institute, would call the strong matrix organizational system. Fairly easy to do. Again, you give me 2 or 3 days to come into your organization, talk with some people about what you're trying to accomplish, looking to create that cross-functional environment. I could set that up for you fairly easily. What makes this hard? is that they are small. Yes, we can do that. They are cross-functional. Yes, we can do that, but they are self-managing. And once we had that expectation, things become much more challenging because this is a new sense of accountability that we're asking our teams to pick up. In order for that to work, our managers have to release some of the control that they have been used to holding on to. They're the ones that give direction. They're the ones that set expectations. They're the ones that possibly are making decisions for those people formally, maybe on a daily basis. And now we're asking those managers to release some of that decision-making control over to the Scrum teams. And we're asking the Scrum teams to pick up this additional responsibility. That could be challenging. And the third area of change in the organization that needs to be addressed is the degree of visibility. We're talking about full disclosure, exposing risks, issues, some of them interdepartmental, organizational, procedural, that could be a major cultural shift for some. Now, for you, maybe it's no problem at all. But I look for how the conversations are taking place in an organization. And you may have seen something like this before, which is a dead giveaway for the organization's cultural acceptance of increased visibility. You see a team member, let's say a developer, talking to a C-level person like CEO or CIO because they happen to meet, let's say, in an elevator. And the C-level person says, "Oh, hey, you're working on that project that started a couple of months ago." And the developer says, "Yes, that's right, I am." And the C-level person says, "So how's it going?" What happens next will be very revealing. If that developer gives the pat answer of, "Oh, everything's going fine," yeah, we might have some work to do on the cultural influence of communication expectations around visibility. If that developer feels comfortable sharing what's really going on, and that is accepted, and there's no problem with that, that's a big movement away from needing to remain silent because that developer knows in that other environment that they're not allowed to share things like status with a C-level person. I encourage you, think through your transformation efforts, think through the challenges that you've experienced, and test my theory that most, if not all, of those challenges you've experienced have somehow been connected with those three areas of getting iterative right, creating good, strong, self-managed teams, and having adequate degrees of visibility.